We love Zencaster because it allows us to record the audio for our podcast and create the video segments we use for our weekly Sister Scoop episodes. Zencaster has helped us make content capture simple.
It's now super easy to record a podcast with Zencaster. Log in using your browser and start recording a high-quality podcast right away. Record studio quality sound and up to 4K video with your guests, and feel a sense of zen knowing Zencaster's multi-layered backups ensure you always have your recordings in the highest quality, even if the connection is unstable.
If you've thought about podcasting before and realized that you need a lot of different tools and services, those days are over. With Zencaster's all-in-one podcasting platform, you can create your podcast in one place and distribute it to Spotify, Apple, and other major destinations.
Just go to zencastr.com/pricing and use our code SistersAssembled, and you'll get 30% off your first month of any Zencaster paid plan. We want you to have the same easy experiences we do for all of our podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story.
Katie and I are always hungry, and one snack we both love is beef jerky. That's why we're so excited to tell you about one of our favorite jerky brands, Matt Hat Jerky.
Matt Hat's delicious taste makes it a great snack, and the variety of flavors, including original, black truffle, and my personal favorite, roasted garlic, means there's a flavor for everyone. Plus, it's local to the area where we grew up in, which we just love.
Use the link in the show notes below to get some Matt Hat Jerky for yourself, and make sure to use our coupon code SistersAssembled for 10% off. Hello and welcome to Sisters Assembled, your home for all things MCU. And we have reached the finale of Daredevil Born Again Season 2, and it was a doozy. I had my hands over my face. I had to pause at regular intervals. There's a lot to unpack here, so I'm going to stop blathering away, except other than to say, if you've not watched the season finale, this is the only verbal spoiler warning you're going to get. We are going to talk about every single detail. None will be hidden away, so make sure that you watch it and then come back to our episode so that you don't get any of the major plot points spoiled, because that would be super unfortunate. All right, Katie, let's just get started.
Oh my god. You know, like, there are very few things that I feel like we watch and I almost like don't want to talk about afterwards, just because I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? Not in a bad way. I actually think like a lot of things were wrapped up very nicely in the way that they'll either go on to something else or they were wrapped up and they'll be left in this season or whatever. But I actually like almost dreaded talking about this, just because I was like, I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah. I literally had to, like, when it was fresh last night and I was kind of just like staring at a wall, I was like, I need to write a list. Like, I feel like there's so much that happened that even with my list, we're going to get to a point where we're going to hang up this recording, we're going to be done, and then I'm going to text you and be like, we totally forgot to talk about this one thing, because there's just so much that happened. But I literally was like, I have to at least try to capture the big stuff while it is still fresh before I just like get fixated on like one or two things that, you know, we're going to end up talking about the entire episode and miss an entire huge piece, because there are so many of them.
Yeah, I think we kind of start big and move small, because that way, at least if we do forget things or things are just like whatever, it's not us forgetting to talk about like Daredevil.
Yeah.
So let's start with, you know, Matt Murdock, Daredevil. The world knows now, because it's not just New York. That was being televised. That is going to be news everywhere, that he is Daredevil. And now I think we kind of, in its own way throughout the episode, you knew it was coming, because even I think Kingpin is, well, I know Kingpin sits there and kind of tries to use it to almost like threaten him.
Yeah.
And it was funny, because I remember when he called him to the stand, and I was like, interesting that he's going to call him to the stand, because Kingpin's just sitting on his secret.
Right.
Like, he's kind of been covering for him this whole time in this weird relationship that the two of them have built. And so I was like, this is interesting, because this could really go against Matt, only for it to completely go the opposite direction. Obviously, we should have anticipated, you know, Matt is always going to have one step ahead of something, and he's always going to have a better idea of what he's going to do than us as the audience. We're not in his mind. But I don't know if I fully anticipated he was going to essentially unmask himself.
I think the way he was acting throughout the episode, to me, gave more and more hints. Like,
Yeah.
when, to your point, when Kingpin was threatening him and he was just so completely unconcerned, I think he had kind of gone into that courtroom knowing that that was the choice. Like, the choice had already been made. So it was just the matter of what's the right time and how do I basically get Kingpin to paint himself into a corner and then use this as my, ultimate winning card. And I think he did it beautifully. I don't know, like, from a character and story perspective, obviously we see that Matt's in jail at the end, but I don't know how we come back from this or how the character moves forward, I guess I should say, because I feel like, in the 3 seasons of the original show, plus the 2 seasons now that we've had of Born Again, it's like this constant, I mean, obviously it's a constant threat of people finding out who he is, but it's also this, I think, intrinsic part of the character, his ability to subvert expectations, right? Nobody would think that Daredevil would be this blind lawyer, and that's part of how he's able to get away with it. I mean, even the DA is like, oh, you expect me to believe this blind man is Daredevil? And then he immediately shows him, of course I am. But
Yeah.
I think that's it's been such an important part of the storytelling, such an important part of the character. I'll be curious to see kind of how that affects the storytelling moving forward and how they're able to not work around it, but work with the new set of circumstances, I guess is the best way to say it.
Right. Well, because we're not going to have a Doctor Strange do a spell and undo it.
Right.
Yeah. I struggle because, and I hate bringing this up, especially when it comes to stuff like Daredevil, because we don't really know how it's going to affect it. But because we don't know how it's going to affect it, I feel like it needs to kind of be said. We do have Doomsday happening in the meantime. We will have, not by the time season 3 comes out, but we will have Secret Wars. There could be some bigger ramifications that we are not aware of. I would like to think to some degree the Defenders are kind of going to be in their own island, but we know they're not, because we also know Brand New Day is going to be feeding pretty directly into Daredevil, the Defenders, just that entire universe. I mean, the Punisher's in it. So
Yeah.
I think kind of with that, that's where I kind of am like, maybe there's some loopholes there just to kind of see. But you're right. At the end of the day, we are going to have a completely different set of circumstances when we come back in season 3. I am intrigued to, and now listen, like, I think when you look at the whole season as just like from start to finish, there were a lot of hints. I mean, I think we started with with episode 1, even just saying it's interesting that both Matt and Daredevil are faces of the resistance in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And that he's kind of getting it from both sides, and nobody's aware, obviously, other than like Karen and things of that nature, who he really is and who the two, personalities are. That they're really just one person. So I think there was probably some hints throughout that was like, okay, these two are going to entirely merge in the public eye to some point. I don't think I think as the season went on, I don't think I fully anticipated that happening, because that just isn't where I thought we were going. And also, I think they emphasized less and less on the resistance and things of that. Like, there were, or I shouldn't say less on the resistance, less on him as the face of the resistance as time went on. Even though obviously Daredevil was the face, it became less and less Matt Murdock.
Yeah.
And I think that came with Kingpin once again giving him that hero speech and telling people, help me find Matt Murdock. Well, now Matt's less and less of that face for the resistance than Daredevil, the vigilante kind of was. But it is interesting how this all came together and how we're going to have to explain it moving forward. He's also in jail with half of the anti-vigilante task force.
Yeah. This is an interesting one because I know we've talked a lot about Devlin Cell Block D. That has been really kind of the prevailing theory as to what the next kind of comic line inspiration is going to be. It's interesting because we could still do it for sure, right? He's in jail. That's a huge part of it. But I will say another interesting part of that storyline is that Iron Fist suits up as Daredevil in order to not basically in order to save Matt's secret, we don't have that need now, but we know that Danny's back. So like that part really threw me for a loop, his revealing his identity, because that kind of took an interesting chunk out of that particular storyline. And the other piece is Kingpin is not in jail. And
Right.
Kingpin should be in jail for that storyline. So now is it kind of a more loose interpretation of that storyline? Okay, cool. That could be interesting. I also think that I was disappointed that, for example, Powell was not removed. His head was not removed from his body during this experience.
I agree.
And that he is in jail. I think that's ultimately going to be Matt's conflict when in jail. I'll be curious to see how long he will be in there. We know that, obviously Spider-Man's going to be in jail in Brand New Day. So that could be interesting. But I do think that he's not going to break Matt out of jail. I think that we're going to, obviously, even just from some of the spoilers we've got from our king, Luke Cage, I think that, we're going to see Matt, I would say, for at least 3 to 4 episodes be in jail, if I had to take a guess, out of an 8-episode season for season 3. And that conflict is going to continue with Powell and some of those anti-vigilante task force, just knowing now that there's so much bad blood that can be out in the open. But it definitely puts a wrench into some of those prevailing theories or aspects of some of those prevailing theories.
Yeah, it does. And I think it's interesting because we can't take off the fact that we have the Punisher special presentation next week, who's also in Brand New Day.
Yes.
So I do think, that's kind of something to consider as well. We can't spend an entire season of Matt being in jail next. That's not going to work.
Yeah.
So as you kind of said, he is going to have to be broken out or he's going to have to get out. That's a little less likely. I'm thinking he's broken out because let's be real. I mean, he literally, the crimes that he can have, there's no way unless we do a time jump. Now, I'm not really a full fan of that, but in some regards I could be, because we did talk a little bit about Luke Cage and him being mayor possibly. We also know from Brand New Day who is mayor during that movie.
Right.
So,
well, because that's the other thing to think about is technically and in theory, if this season happens just after Thunderbolts, the season of Born Again, Brand New Day is still, I have to do the math, but what year did we say? 2028 thereabouts. So we should, in theory, still be a few years down the line. So that's the other thing is like, unless there is, to your point, a major time jump between 2 and 3, you almost have to think of it in terms of Born Again 1, 2, 3, then I'm sorry, Born Again 1, 2, special presentation, then 3, Born Again, then Brand New Day. So they're
right.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely a little bit of a mental gymnastics to have to like go back in time. I'm not always a fan of that, but I understand why they did the time jump in Brand New Day, so I get it.
Right. But that's why I'm saying like there's definitely going to be a bit of that. That's good. That has to affect this universe in some perspective because we know the Hand's involved and we know the Punisher's involved. And so it's going to have to affect where we are in the Daredevil Born Again series.
I do want to talk about, I want to jump into the Punisher special really quick because we're talking about the Hand and we're talking about some of this kind of where do we leave off for 2 as it relates to setting up for 3. And here's why I want to talk about it. So as we know, that's next week's essentially like 9th episode, but focusing on Frank, and likely going to be, or almost 100% confirmed, going to be taking place before Brand New Day. We don't know then how it relates to season 3. But, we've talked about potentially continuing that storyline of his, discontent with how the anti-vigilante task force has been using his symbol. Obviously, the end of season 1 where he has, that conversation with Powell is a lot of, pulled from the comics where he's saying, to police officers who are using his symbol, we are not the same. What you do and what I do, not the same. So we've already kind of seen that piece of it. When his symbol actually changes, though, that is actually when he is the leader or a part of the Hand. So if you think about the Punisher being a part of the Hand, now it's like, we have the Hand in Brand New Day. We have Punisher in Brand New Day. How does that then affect to what we were saying about season 3? Now, in his special, his symbol looks like the old one or the one that we've seen in the past, maybe slightly modified, but it's definitely not the version that you see in the comics or anything akin to the comics for when he's a member of the Hand or a part of the Hand, whatever you want to say. What I don't remember is if the symbol that he has is wearing in the Brand New Day trailers, or if we even really see it, is adjusted any further from what we have seen in the trailers for his special. The reason I bring this up again is just all these things are starting to connect and kind of be intertwined between seasons 2, seasons 3, the special, and Brand New Day. And so the question is just, one, are they going to even adapt that part of the storyline for the Punisher? Unclear. But two, if they do, kind of where do the pieces fit from a timeline perspective? So just tossing that one out there as well.
Yeah, I think timeline perspective primarily, if that's what we're looking at, I think we get a clear answer when we get a second piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
Right now we only have one, which is Born Again season 2. Next week we get that second piece, and in July we'll get the third. So I think that will help us actually be able to understand a little bit where these all lie, especially because while we are kind of looking at it as almost like a 9th episode, that's not to say it's happening entirely right when this ended, if you will.
Right.
So it could be happening in tandem. I mean, we have to think of where I actually was doing this kind of mental gymnastics last night. I was like, where did he end at the end of season 1? Because I was like, he's obviously not in season 2. We just watched the whole thing. And we also knew he wasn't, unless he was going to make a random cameo.
Yeah.
But I was trying to figure out, I was like, where did he actually end? And I had thought he ended in jail or like captured by Kingpin. But I couldn't remember because I was like, I don't remember how season 1 ended for him specifically.
Yeah, so he does end in jail, but then there's an end credit scene where he breaks out of what we then find out is the Red Hook facility where they're keeping the vigilantes. So he breaks out of that at the end of season 1. Then to your point, we have no additional information for what he's been doing, not only in season 2, but that entire 6-month period where we know the Thunderbolts takes place, but also where Fisk is in power. That is that break between season 1 and season 2. So to your point, actually, instead of the presentation taking place at the end of season 2, it very well could actually be taking place between 1 and 2 and kind of be filling in that gap as well. Or it could be during the events of what we've seen over the last few weeks.
Yeah, well, exactly. So I think when we get that puzzle piece next week, we'll be able to kind of start to put more of a picture together. But I want to talk about Kingpin. I'm really not so much about, I guess, him more than just his whole story. We have not entirely wrapped up Kingpin, because to wrap up Kingpin means he's dead.
Yeah.
They left him on the board, which I think is smart. But they removed him in a way that I don't anticipate seeing him next season. I don't. Not at least directly.
Interesting. I hear you. Like, from a logical storyline standpoint, I'm like 100%. I also, and I know people have been saying this online, like, he has been the main antagonist for Daredevil for now 5 seasons. And don't get me wrong.
I've been saying it. I've been like, okay.
I know. It's a very common sentiment, and I totally hear that. And I think they have great chemistry, the two of them. But I do understand the desire to maybe focus on some different, whether it be a group or an individual. I know we're potentially even bringing back the Hand, which is a whole different thing. So, there's a lot of sentiment about maybe like it's time. At the same time, we know that Vincent D'Onofrio has been on set for season 3 with a full beard. So it's probably not a flashback. So what he is doing, what the capacity at which he is pulling the strings is a little bit up in the air. I was shocked he didn't end up in jail, just because I think I had kind of really invested in the hype around Devil and Cell Block D, where they're both in jail, and I was like, that makes sense, right? If you have both of those pieces in those particular places.
Yeah.
I don't honestly, there's a part of me that's like, the beach is Tahiti and like wants to go into
Oh
like a
God.
whole thing. But I don't know. He seemed so broken at the end of the season. I think he really needs to take a lot of time. Here's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to take time to kind of find himself again. He lost Vanessa. Now he lost New York. Those are really his two great loves in life. And so I think he needs to figure out who he is without these things. But I think ultimately he's going to end up back in New York because he doesn't really know how to exist outside of it. And in some ways, forcing him to leave the city is almost a worse punishment than putting him in jail. That's the one thing that he, again, like so desperately loves. It's his home. And so I think we're going to see him doing a lot of soul searching next season. I don't know if it's going to then set up. I know season 4 hasn't been confirmed, but if they're trying to set up then a season 4 where he comes back in a different capacity, I'm not sure. But to your point, I kind of hope and I'm kind of thinking that maybe he takes a backseat in season 3 to maybe set up a grand comeback in season 4. Not sure.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was implying of I don't really expect to see him much. I think, yes, I know he's been on set, but I do think and I kind of hope that we do, as you kind of said, have him take that back seat. Primarily because too, I mean, at the end of the day, I've said it too. He's been kind of the main antagonist for seasons upon seasons now. And it's not a bad thing. But I do truly wonder how he comes back from this because it wasn't just like everything else has been crime related.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's been entirely underground because there has been a trial before and he has gone to jail before and that's been televised and things of that nature. But this was the entire city. You were the mayor. And this affected every single person who lives in New York City. You had people literally like have an entire resistance and revolt against you. And that doesn't even include the fact that you left bodies upon bodies upon bodies of people who wanted to take you down in the courthouse.
Can we talk
when
about that?
when they cut that deal though, like there was no knowledge that he had done that.
Right. I've seen that people pointing that out online that, the deal was for everything that he had done as mayor, right? All of the underhandedness, all of the racketeering and the like, basically organized crime that he is so good at. It was not for the hands-on murdering of his own constituents, which he then proceeded to do when he punched that first guy and he hits the wall and you see his eyes are open and he's dead. That's where I think I had to stop there because I was just in such disbelief that he was removing the mask so thoroughly, right? Because I think what's interesting about Kingpin is he is a criminal at his core, but he is so good at putting on this veneer of this sophisticated guy, right? Even though we have seen he is not afraid to get his hands dirty. He only ever does that, in the shadows. He never does that out in the open. He is so good at kind of keeping that mask on. And he fully unmasked, in this episode. And it was so interesting because, Matt has this question about can Karen be a vigilante if she doesn't wear a mask? But I think the real question is, can you wear a mask without having to physically wear a mask? And the answer is yes, look at the mayor. And that was I think it was just shocking to see him so completely unravel that there's no coming back from this. Like he's shown it. You can come back from, underhanded dealings and even being convicted.
Yeah.
But you cannot come back from witnesses watching you murder people. You had witnesses and you're done. Like that's it.
Well, that's what I mean. So that's why I'm really anxious to see how they kind of handle him in the 3rd season of Born Again, because you were more like murdering people. And that isn't just, to your point, what he was doing as mayor that was criminal, on top of the Safer Streets Act and everything else that they were doing. And how, I mean, obviously they found the anti-vigilante task force guilty
of
plenty of crimes, which is to go like even further and say, who employed them? That's what Matt was asking. Or even just saying, you're employed and you're employed. And every single one of these people are employed by him who's telling them to do exactly this thing. And so when that all traces back, well, if you're the mouth that's giving the orders, you're guilty too.
Yeah.
And that's, again, not for the murders that you've done. So it's like, I don't know how he returns to New York. I'm not saying I don't think he wouldn't pull strings and things and play in like the background and things of that nature. But I mean, the port's gone and everything else. Like, I don't know how he ever truly returns to New York.
Well, not to mention the one person who probably could have gotten him out of this mess just based on sheer power and having connections in the right places would have been Mr. Charles, but he burned that bridge when he took those weapons. So he completely isolated himself, then absolutely just lost any sense of strategic maneuvering.
Yeah.
And now finds himself completely alone outside of the city he loves and basically public enemy number one. And he's so well known at this point, right? It's not just Hell's Kitchen anymore. It's everywhere in the city. He's so well known that he cannot just come back and try to live a quiet life or, you know, slowly try to come back to what you were saying. The people of New York will not stand for it. So he's really very much painted himself into a corner, and I trust that he will get himself out of it because he
always does.
He always does. I mean, he is just, that man is like the phoenix. He burns to ashes, then he rises from those ashes, and it's interesting that I'm comparing him to a phoenix, but he is. I was
gonna say, I was like, is that really what we want to do?
He is, but it's either that or he's like a cat with 9 lives. Like, you just can't keep the guy down. He always just finds a way to survive. He's a survivor. And, you know, and when you understand his story and how he grew up, you understand why he is that way, the way he's clawed and scratched for everything that he's got. And you just see that unwillingness to let it go. So I will be so curious to see what is in store for him moving forward, because he's down in a way that we've never seen him down before. That is for sure.
That's what I mean. Yeah. And if it wasn't so public, I would have been like, okay, I could see how we can write this a different way and whatever. It is so public that I don't know how he returns. Yeah. I will be very anxious, and I will wait very anxiously on seeing how that works for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the cool things, though, about how this all went down, and this was something I actually think you talked about last episode, was wanting to see the people be the ones who brought him down. And ultimately, that is who it was. Like, he never got that moment with Daredevil. I personally would have liked to see a little bit more of both. So I loved watching the people rise up. I thought that was awesome to see, you know, them standing up against tyranny. I got a little emotional. I was like, wow, this is so beautiful to watch everybody, you know, stand up for their neighbors and what's right. And that's awesome. But that means, you know, just from a purely like superhero content watcher, we only ever got one physical fight between Daredevil and Kingpin this season, and it was that weird little like uber emotional skirmish that they had after Vanessa's death that was odd. So that was the one thing that when he, you know, he ended up saving Kingpin, which was, I mean, Matt always does that, but you know, after he stopped the people from beating Kingpin physically, it became very clear that there was not going to be a physical fight between the two of them. And I was like, oh, so you mean we're going to end this season without the two of them having a big blowout fight? Like, that to me was the one place where I was like, I wish we could have had that.
And I was a little aggravated because that hallway setup where you see him fighting through the masked daredevils, which were obviously the people, and you see Jessica and Daredevil fighting through the anti-vigilante task force. The fact that those two didn't lead directly to each other was the most disappointing part of the entire episode for me.
Because we know Matt loves a good hallway fight.
Yes, but also like Kingpin coming out, and now I do want to commend. I really liked that the way he comes out from the courthouse or like from the main room is down the stairs and he's above the people on the balcony and the people
Yeah.
are standing below. I think cinematically that tells a story within itself.
Yeah.
However, I was very upset that you did these parallels and didn't have them clash in the middle.
Yeah. I
I thought
agree.
that was stupid. And no offense, but I thought Daredevil standing with the people, and again, I understand for that reason that's symbolic. That didn't do anything for me. It didn't. I was like, oh, whoop de doo. Like I really was like, okay, so now what are we gonna do? Because I was already disappointed that the hallway scenes did not directly align with each other. I was already like, that was a missed opportunity to make a really cool transition into Matt and Kingpin taking each other out, because he
Yeah.
just took out all the anti-vigilante task force and he just took out all the faux daredevils. Like I was
Yeah.
like, this was the perfect opportunity. So I think I was already like, I'm a little disappointed in this. And then again, I did like the symbolism behind having Kingpin standing essentially like a king above the people. I did love that, but it didn't do anything for me to have Daredevil standing there with the people like that. Like that, I was like, the big fight could have been right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or to your point, like having them fight above the people and watching Matt. Because I think to your point, like there's a symbolism behind Matt standing with the people, right? He's a man of the people. He is one of them.
Yeah.
Born and raised New Yorker, right? He loves this. And that's kind of what connects him and Kingpin. I mean, there's many things that connect them, but one of the things that connects him and Kingpin, and he mentions this, is we both love this city, right? And so you know that that's, despite all of Matt's moral qualms, that's essentially why he dons the mask and does what he does. So there's
Yeah.
a symbolism in him standing with the people. He's a man of the people.
Yeah.
However, there is also a symbol of him then running up the stairs and fighting Kingpin on behalf of the people and taking him down. And, you know, now they know who he is. So they understand, you know, his, to some extent, that, you know, they understand his history way better than if he was just some random man in a mask that they don't know who he is. They know a little bit about Matt Murdock, right? I mean, Kingpin elevated his profile even more with what he did this season. So
Right.
there's this, there could have been, I'll say that, there could have been an interesting additional kind of conversation around the king or the falling king, the man who represents the people, and him having the ability to deliver that final, not killing blow or anything, but that final blow to Kingpin's reign as mayor. And as much as I liked, you know, the people being the ones who took him down, I think you can still get that across with the people coming in, right? And showing that we are not going to stand for this, but having Daredevil do the actual physical fighting. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was perfect the way they showed Kingpin becoming completely unhinged and going after those people. I think that part could have stayed the same, but when the people in that kind of grand atrium, when the people ran up the stairs, I think that should have been Matt specifically going in and kind of being the vanguard there, and the point person who's really going after Kingpin.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree, because and maybe that's where I felt like the whole like standing in front of the people and the people went, maybe that's kind of all just bleeding together to me of why I was like, nah, like, okay. But I do think I wish they would have had more of a moment, because we don't know what it's going to look like for either of them moving forward.
Yeah.
And so I do think that it would have been worthwhile. And in its own way, obviously, Matt would have never killed him, but it would have been almost more powerful had he. I know he wouldn't, but I do think in that moment, I think if you're going to tell the end of the story, especially between these two, you got to pack a punch. And it like did, and then it didn't. And it fell off. And I don't know where exactly I feel like it entirely fell off, but it was in that scene where Matt was not the one who took him down. And Matt's like saving his life. And I'm like, okay, if you're not, this comes down to the bigger conversation, which we're not going to get into because we've done it 17 times, but it's like, if you're not going to do it, let the people do it. This man like destroyed lives.
Yeah.
Like many. And he just like murder spree upstairs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I had like mixed feelings.
Yeah, that part, I think, if I had to like diagnose the problem in one sentence, I think it would be they lean too heavily on symbolism and not enough on the gritty action that I think is what people love about the show. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of room for symbolism, but I think you could have done both. And I
Yeah.
think a lot about, I want to say it's the season 3 finale where they're just absolutely going at it. One of them has already incapacitated Bullseye, who's lying there with a broken back, like on the floor, and they're just absolutely beating the ever loving crap out of one another. That's why the blood stain is on that white painting, all those things. There's so much built up hate and animosity there. And I think you have that, and that's what people, I don't want to say people love that, but like between these two characters who have all of that history, I think that's what people were expecting to see. And that's why when I kind of sat there at the end of the episode, I was like, there was a lot of amazing stuff here. But the one thing that I kind of consider a demerit, for better, lack of better term, is we only ever saw those two fight for that one scene. This is, I mean, I understand they're fighting via proxy, but I think the show almost got too cerebral this season. Like there was a lot of really good symbolic storytelling being told, but you can also do that where it ultimately culminates in those two. And that's, I think, where we fell short.
I would also argue, I think if we're gonna, because I mean, I think it's remiss to not entirely talk about the whole season to some degree. I mean, we just finished it. I think that lends itself to my bigger complaint of the season, which was, you kind of said it got more cerebral. I think it got too big. So yes, cerebral, but also just too big, where we were following too many characters at certain points that I was like, I hear ya. But I mean, how many episodes did we sit here on this podcast and go, oh, I guess we should probably talk about Matt?
Yeah, he got lost in his own show a little bit.
He did. And I hate saying that, but I do think that's my bigger season complaint, that we had so much going on. And now granted, like, listen, New York was essentially under siege. Like, I get it. But we got so lost in so much of that I genuinely don't always remember. I mean, I think even we had an episode where we were like, Matt was in this for what, 5 minutes? Like, this wasn't even about Matt. Like, I think I struggled with that. And I think even this finale, I think there were times, and that's why we also lost so many of those fight scenes, because we weren't paying attention to Matt a lot of the time.
Yeah.
There were so many other things going on. I mean, I would love to see the comparison of even Bullseye's screen time to Daredevil's, because he actually got a pretty prominent amount of screen time, and I'm not ever going to complain about that. Never going to complain about that. But he did. Yeah. And the other reason I kind of feel that this is a complaint of mine is Jessica. I feel entirely wasted.
Yeah.
She was a pawn to tell a certain part of the story, but as her being actually Jessica Jones and her return to the MC, or I guess her debut into the MCU, I was like, oh, that's all we did with her.
I hear you. I do. But the one thing that is like a balm on that particular burn for me is they made it so clear that this is a backdoor into her own property. Yes. And I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. Like when she, especially like, there's the rumors have been flying. And then when you kind of saw the arc that she was having in the show, or lack thereof, and it was just this like, ooh, let me cameo the last 3 episodes. But then when she shut that Alias Investigations door, I was like, all right, so she's back. Like at this point, just make the announcement. So I was kind of like, all right, I see what the function, we obviously know she's going to be in season 3 as well, but I see the function of what she was doing in this show, which was to reintroduce the character, reestablish kind of where she is now at a very base level, so that when we see her again in season 3, and when we see her again in, what I'm assuming is her show now, then we kind of have done that. We've already kind of laid that groundwork. So that's why I'm like, I know we're going to see her again. It's not one of those situations where I was like, here's a fun cameo. See you again in 5 years, Jessica.
Yeah, I just, maybe the bigger complaint with her is that I knew that's exactly what they were doing. And that's what was kind of annoying. Where it was like, I know all you're doing here is to do exactly what you just said. kind of get you up to speed with the character, prepare her for her own series. And it's like, that's cool. But like, that's all I felt was she was literally only here so that when you come out with Jessica Jones, whatever if they decide to add its own little new title thing to it, season 1 or whatever they decide to actually do, we are caught up on her character and we don't get whiplash. And that's unfortunately to me, all I felt with the whole thing. Like even her involvement at the end, they both jumped up the stairs. Where'd she go? Like, I was like, we just literally lost in the sauce. Like, no, like, that don't even have her jump up the stairs, but you did. Where did she go in that final battle? Like, we just
what final
lost
battle? That's like, you know.
That true. But like that final moment with Kingpin, and now I understand it need to be Matt and Kingpin, but then why'd we have her go up the stairs? Like, we literally see her land and nothing else.
She like tosses a few people back and then that's like the end of it.
Yeah. And so that's, I think, the bigger complaint to me that I was like, she was just like there. That was it.
Yeah.
I'm just annoyed because I like Jessica.
No, and I love her. So I get that argument. I guess for me, it was just like, honestly, after kind of the road of where these characters have been with, you know, Netflix, and then we're not going to bring them back, and then we're completely rebooting, and just, it's been a very long road, as we all know. So for me, I'm kind of like, you know what? If you're going to use this as an opportunity to set her up for something bigger, I will take that. Now, if she shows up in season 3 and she has, you know, no storylines, no growth, nothing, because, you know, we obviously know she's in season 3 as well, then it's going to be problematic. I don't think we're obviously going to get her show before season 3, so we're going to need to lay a little bit more groundwork there. But as of where we left off for season 2, I'm like, I can see, I have a firm understanding of where Jessica is. That was all you needed to do. You have checked that box. We can consider that done. Now, further that storyline in 3, confirm her show, and I'm a happy camper. Yeah. So I guess for me, it was just like, it's been a long road. I'll take any morsel I can get at this particular junction.
I agree, but I think that lends itself to that bigger problem to me that just seemed like there was so much going on.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of characters they were trying to focus on. And like, here's a big one to me that's a complaint. Heather.
Yep. Goodbye. Could have gone.
So we're trying to set her up as Lady Muse. That's where we're going. That's where season 3 is going. Fine. We spent far too much time on season 2 or within season 2 trying to tell that story.
She could have been in... Yeah, she could have been in 2 episodes max, done a couple of the courtroom scenes. That's it. She did not.
She could have been in those last like 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah. I did not need to see her struggling in the first episode. I am not invested in her. And it's I just want to say, it's not the actress's fault. She does a great job. She's doing
a great job at making me hate her.
Yeah, I really don't like Heather as a character.
I like to look at Heather. She comes on my screen. I'm like, pretty. Then she starts opening her mouth and I'm like, leave.
I think what really POs me about Heather, 2 things. 1, she is a mental health professional and she uses that as a weapon, which to me is just so grossly unethical, immoral, you name it. I get the ick when I see her because I'm like, oh my God, you basically have special powers. Like, you understand the human mind and how to manipulate it in ways that the average person does not, and you are using them for evil, and that is horrible. And 2, the holier than thou attitude with which that woman proceeds through life boils my blood, and I can't do it. Yeah.
I mean, that first part that you said obviously also irks the crap out of me. If you guys have been around, you know, I literally went to, like, I got a minor in psychology. I've debated going back to school for getting like my actual psychology degree. I'm very passionate about mental health, and we've talked about it in a lot of different characters. We've literally done full analysis of like, I mean, especially like, I know Moon Knight was one that we really talked a lot about, different, you know, whatever. Not the point, but the thing is I'm very passionate, and I agree. She uses that as a weapon. We saw it with Swordsman. We saw it with Karen when she's sitting there literally being like, yeah, so she's this, and this. And he's like, so essentially a sociopath. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, girl,
no
you
mention of the
are
fact
the sociopath.
No mention of the fact that she hit her 3 times across the face.
Well, my favorite thing here too is like, there's always like this. Okay, because obviously I think because of TikTok and social media, like there's become this whole like stigma or like almost lack of stigma. I don't even know how to call it, but everybody like self-diagnoses, right?
Mhm.
So everybody's like, oh, I'm bipolar or whatever. No, we don't. That's not something you just like throw around. That's like a very serious diagnosis. I only almost chuckle because her favorite thing that I've noticed she does as a healthcare professional, because she is like, here's the personality disorder they have. And I'm like, hey, those are not just like something people randomly like come on. That's not like an anxiety disorder, which is a very common disorder that people do have. Like, these are like deep cut personality disorders that form over a lot of time trauma. And and not that I'm saying Karen doesn't necessarily have trauma. She does, but like, I noticed she does that with the swordsman too, where she was like, here's the personality disorder. And I'm like, wow, we're just throwing around personality disorders.
Well, and it's like statistically how many people in
That's
a
what I'm
given
saying,
population.
though. Like, it's not common enough for you to just call everybody like some sort of personality disorder. It doesn't work like that. Like, yeah, it grates at me every single time. When she did it to Karen too, I was like, girl, I can't.
Yeah. So long story short here, I think we could have cut not Karen. We love Karen.
We're team Karen now.
Yes, in case you missed 2 episodes ago when we wholly flipped our opinions on Karen. But when for Heather, I think we could have cut her screen time in half, still gotten to the Lady Muse part, because, you know, even some of the stuff that she was doing in the courtroom, like you can clearly see the woman is unhinged. Like, she's not in her right mind, nor is she acting in any sort of ethical manner. So you could have gotten there with half the screen time, given the screen time to, you know, the title character, and that would have been great. I will say, I feel like I almost feel like maybe the producers and the writers are seeing that the ensemble has gotten a little big. Maybe that's why we lost Daniel. May he rest in peace. But seeing that
he was one they should have kept. Why'd we keep Heather?
Yeah, right.
I don't want Heather.
But seeing that there were, you know, maybe some smaller characters or some side characters who were getting a lot of time when really Matt was not. I can see that maybe they're kind of. I'm hoping that that was the purpose. They were just kind of prime season 3 to more focus on Matt. We'll see, because I agree. I think Matt overall in this season got lost in the sauce for a guy who's the title character. And in a situation such as this, we spent way too much time chasing other storylines that did not involve Matt Murdock or Daredevil.
Well, in the same vein, Buck, I didn't care. He got shot. I was like, it's not lethal. Like,
after he took out Daniel, whatever happens to Buck,
I'm really
he
over
owns.
Oh, now I'm really over it. But like, he had a lot of screen time.
Yeah.
Which his was even weirder, because I was like, for what?
Well, and here's the thing. I do want to talk about the Buck and Fisk scene when he, without telling him, tells him that he murdered Daniel. I thought there'd be more there. I feel like that whole storyline with BB, like, if you think about kind of our trajectory of how we analyzed and thought about that storyline going through the season, like, yes, you can say it ultimately culminated in Daniel's death, but BB revealed herself as the faux Kingpin. And I thought that there was just going to be like more ramifications even towards her. I mean, granted, she actually got probably a positive outcome.
She kind of got the last laugh.
Well, not only that, but I would have to think that in doing that work, that's how she got her job, or, you know, working, you know, in her uncle's old paper. So she actually was able to use that in a positive manner, which great for her. Like, no judgment. I think that's great. She deserves to, you know, be recognized for the real work that she's doing. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm a little salty that I misjudged that whole storyline. But even from like a within the Kingpin administration itself, I kind of thought that there would be more of a shakeup. Why was Sheila not notified? Sheila brought him in. You know,
Yeah,
they
that
had
was
their
kind of
moments, but
weird. That it's weird because it felt like we focused too much on side characters until the end when we actually needed to wrap up side characters, and then we didn't get what we needed.
yeah, because then they were like, oh my gosh, I forgot this is Daredevil show. We should probably add some Daredevil in here, but then he's not going to fight Fisk.
Right.
And it's going to be, yeah.
Well, that's exactly because like Heather could have been taken out of 90% of the episodes.
Correct.
And you still could have had her ending and it still would have been like, oh, right. Everybody else, I feel like, was the opposite, where it was like we still had so much of them, but then we didn't have the ending for any of them that made sense. And so it's like, okay, but now I don't understand what's going on with Buck. I don't know what's going on with Sheila. I don't understand. Like, we just didn't have, like, it just felt like for something that we were talking about loyalty and all this stuff, all the whole season, nothing happened at the end.
I feel like that's the thesis for the season. Like, if you think about even when we were talking about last week, we expected this big explosion from Kingpin. And like, yes, we got it in the form of literal fisticuffs to death by Kingpin, which that was not on my bingo card. But I think I was expecting scale-wise something so much bigger. And so yes, we had literally the whole city rise up, but even there was this sentiment that there was going to be almost a war, right? Not a war, that's kind of an aggressive
but there
term
was
for that, but
I mean
a clash.
There was. Yeah,
and they say like, oh, the city's going to war, and then you see that one officer on the anti-vigilante task force say let them through. Okay, that was at the courthouse. You're telling me that there's no other task force clashing with regular police officers, with citizens who were resisting anywhere else in the city. We only focused on what was happening in the courthouse, and we lost the sense of scale, which I think is unfortunate because that is what I think we did the last 3 episodes of the season. I think we built, and then ultimately did not ever reach the apex.
Yes, I would actually argue it wasn't just built. I would say it was built, drop, built, drop, built, drop.
Fair.
Every single time. I mean, it started, and I said this last episode, it started the second Vanessa had glass in her head. It was this anticipation of, oh my God, we are going somewhere. And then it was like a baby drop. And you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't the best, but we're still, the big one's coming. And then you did it again the next episode, and that was Daniel's death. And then you're like, oh, okay, we're that's still not the big one. And then you're just kind of on this ride where we're building. And then by last episode, you're like, oh, crap. Oh, crap. And then still not quite, but you're like the finale. And then this episode, yes, that's exactly it. It was like, oh my God, he just came out as Daredevil. Oh my God, like now this whole thing at the courthouse, they're going to fight. There's going to be actual, like, I was ready for Powell just to light up the whole crowd. Like I was ready for like, really that oh crap moment,
like super high stakes, which there were, but I feel like despite the high stakes, they managed to make them feel small.
Well, that's what I mean. Like the only oh crap moment to me was Kingpin killing the faux Daredevils, but then it just stopped. That's why that hallway scene to me needed to lead him directly to Daredevil, and I mean directly to Daredevil, because it paused again. Yeah. And it was just like, okay.
It lost momentum.
Yes.
And it should have been pedal to the metal all the way through. And instead it was like, ee-oo, ee-oo, ee-oo. Not great.
Yeah.
That part.
Yeah. It just felt, I don't know. It felt very weird to me, pace-wise. I liked it. I enjoyed it as a whole. It was a great finale. But I definitely... And okay, some of it we could argue, we have to kind of curb our own expectations. I understand that. But I just struggled a little with it. Like to your point, like it kind of kept seeming like it was setting up to be like, oh. And then it just was like, oh, okay. I'm not mad about that, but it's not what it felt like that just set up.
Yeah. I think ultimately, to your point, it was like when I was done with the episode, I was like, that was awesome. But then as I sit on it more, because I watched it, Tuesday night, we're recording this on a Wednesday afternoon. So I've been with it for almost 24 hours now. It's like, that was awesome. But here are the places where I kind of wish they had given us more. And I feel like, to your point, they had built up all these things and then never quite delivered on them. And it was
Yeah.
like leading you in certain directions and then never quite getting you to the destination, which I think is kind of disappointing because and I don't know if it's just, to your point, too high expectations or what, but I wanted more from the season as a whole than I think
Well,
what
I
we
think
got.
even with the whole like Matt came out as Daredevil and then it was like, oh, he got arrested. Like, I don't know. I guess like in the moment that he did it, you're like,
Yeah.
and then it was like, oh, he got arrested. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. You said it well that it felt like even with Kingpin, we expect him to snap. He does the opposite. And he actually gets so bad that he like pretty much self-sabotages.
Yeah.
Which is so ironic because he had the perfect platform in that moment. And it's funny because when he addressed the crowd when he went live from the courtroom, that's when he did, or was it? No, it was on the stand in the courtroom.
Yes.
That's when he tries to play that card. And I'm like, you're 3 episodes late.
Yeah. That
I
card
don't
should have been played
understand.
as you were putting Vanessa in the ground. Period.
Correct.
That was the moment to turn public opinion in your favor. When
Correct.
any person, regardless of how they feel about you, is going to some extent be able to empathize with your current situation.
Yeah.
And you missed that window, did a bunch of stuff to make people annoyed and, more annoyed. And then after this, well, I actually don't remember at what point he says that in the trial, but it's either just after or just before a bunch of your very criminal deeds are coming out, and it's so obvious that you're using it as a last ditch effort to save face and save your mayoral status, and you missed the boat. I get it, you were catatonic and you were dealing with grief. You weren't thinking about it. 100% a human reaction, but you can't expect it to work now just because you decided to employ that tactic.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It was a little weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like one of those things where it's like, on face value, I liked it, but as I dig deeper, I'm like, there were some flaws.
I just don't like when I get excited and then I'm like, oh.
Yeah. Well, one thing I know you are definitely excited about, and this is the last thing that is on my personal list that we have to talk about. Bullseye is now working for Mr. Charles. I've seen online some people saying that this is a Thunderbolt setup.
Guys, the pure joy I felt. I genuinely, it was kind of funny because when Luke was like, he found someone else and they show him on the plane right before they show it's Bullseye, I was like, who did they find? Like, I genuinely was like, who are they talking about? Because I was ready for it to be a reveal of some sort, but I was like, I don't know who he's talking about. When it was Bullseye, I was like, thank the good Lord. Thank you. I mean, first off, let's talk about, he was playing behind the scenes during this episode. I loved that they tried to frame him.
Oh my God. So funny.
I also can't believe they didn't try that before.
Them.
Well, and I can't believe they didn't try that before.
Yeah.
Not just with Bullseye, but like in general. Him of all people, though, the fact that he's just like,
what did he call him? He's like, poser. I was like,
then he took him out in the Bullseye and he's just like, he. And then he just turns around and immediately was like, oh crap, you just gave Bullseye a perfectly set up gun.
Yeah.
It's like, why? But like, he's been doing his whole little like, I don't know, I'm a good guy tour lately.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of interesting that Mr. Charles was like, okay. I talked last week about him maybe joining the Thunderbolts. I think if they make the Thunderbolts, whatever is next for them, beyond Doomsday, rated R and give them the Deadpool treatment, and we can kind of have an actually worthwhile like anti-hero, but also not quite anti-heroes because they are heroes, but kind of not, like, movie, I'm here for it. Like, that's the speed for me. So I don't want them to PGify my Bullseye. Let him live, let him breathe, let him do what he's got to do. No, I want you to rated R like everything that already exists for the Thunderbolts, including Bucky. I want to see it. So I hope that's what that might mean. I mean, lots of rumors, lots of people been saying it.
Yeah, I think the other option, and this could be like a nice half step, like instead of going the full step of him being the Thunderbolts, is getting a special presentation. I feel like people have been talking about, or maybe I was thinking of something else. I don't know, whatever. Either way, it could be cool to see, when you're like online, you're like, I can't actually remember what they were talking about. And here we
Yes.
are. It's just so many things. To see him working with Mr. Charles, what does that look like? What are they actually doing? In so many ways, and I think you're going to love this comparison, he has such a similar skill set to the Winter Soldier. Like, yes, he's not enhanced in that, he's not a super soldier, but he have like a metal spine now. He clearly is hard to kill. I mean, Daredevil tossed him off a roof and he ended up in a mental institution and still walks and talks and like completely you would never know. So very hard to kill, extremely good shot. He could basically do what Bucky did his entire Winter Soldier career and topple regimes and do all those things with some really well-placed bullets, and the guy doesn't miss.
Yeah. Well, and I think that would be really cool too, because then that fills in kind of the context of what Luke's up to or was up to.
Yeah.
Without having to like go back and tell that story. We can kind of get a better idea through a different character and through one you've set up perfectly. And I obviously anticipate us to get something because it's Matthew Lillard, first off. I know you didn't just bring him into the series for just that.
Yeah,
That's
agree.
crazy.
I also just makes me happy for Wilson Bethel because he's been so open about how much he loves the character and how scared he was that he was not going to get to play him anymore and all those things. So I think he's gained a lot of fans this season. I think people really liked him in the original series, but this season in particular, I think he has really kind of risen in prominence in terms of like the fandom is absolutely behind this guy and wants more.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I mean, I want more. So I'm hoping this indicates good things.
Yes. I think that is everything. The only other thing I'll say, because I've realized this was on my list, is the one moment that other than when the people were coming after Fisk and it was this beautiful, like the people taking down tyranny moment, the one other moment that I really got choked up when BB kept showing Daniel as part of her, like, we have to take him down message. I was like, okay, I'm fine. And then when she has a picture of him on her desk at the newspaper, and I was like, that one hurts. That one hurts me deeply.
Yeah.
Rest in peace, Daniel. We love you.
That
was the only other thing that I was like, I have to write this down because I'm sad.
Because we miss Daniel.
We love you, Daniel. But that's it, man. We have seen everything from season 2 of Daredevil Born Again. So we'll be back next season covering season 3. We'll be back in the meantime covering all the other Marvel content that comes out between now and then. You can check out our website for the calendar, check below for our Buy Me a Coffee, and also make sure that you are subscribing, liking, following on your podcast platform of choice so you can find all of our new episodes and new content as they come out regularly.
You guys could also give us a follow on all of our socials, which are linked in the show notes down below as well. And as T said, we will be back next week with the Punisher special presentation. We'll see. Not sure what exactly we're going to be getting ourselves into. So we will be covering that next week. And as always, Marvel just blew your mind. So let's talk about it.